The first time I heard my mother call me irresponsible, the weight of the word resonated in my chest like a warning. The small window in my room became the screen of an ambitious dream, where my name, Clara Evans, would grace the cover of Innovators of the Month. It was a dream that had been simmering in my mind for months, but the echo of family criticism grew increasingly deafening, especially when I looked at the framed accomplishments on the walls, achievements that were never mine. They shone with a light I knew I could never reach if I simply followed the path they desired. I was about to confirm that cover feature. My heart pounded, a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. My mother and brother's ever-stern gazes served as a constant reminder of the expectations weighing upon me. Personal dissatisfaction and family rigidity clashed with the freedom and innovation my new life represented. I remember when I decided to leave my secure job at a multinational corporation, where every day, even surrounded by colleagues, I felt intensely alone. My revolutionary ideas got lost in the bureaucracy and lack of vision. The freedom to create filled me with hope, but I was leaping into the abyss of uncertainty, where my mother frequently pointed out the dangers and consequences of every little decision I made. "You're so irresponsible," she repeated, the words leaving her mouth like cannonballs. Her intonation never varied, harsh, critical, uncompromising. I had learned to protect myself from her criticism, creating an invisible shield, distancing myself from the shadows that insisted on pursuing me. And behind all that frustration, a voice pulsed, telling me I needed to prove my worth. Not just to her, but to myself. One night, gazing at the starlight through the window, the weight of rejection became even more oppressive. I was in an untenable situation, a home that was comfortable for everyone else but suffocated me. I sought recognition from a family that didn't see things my way. It wasn't just a battle for acceptance. It was an internal war, where my desire to innovate and transform clashed with the deep roots of a tradition that didn't belong to me. Ideas bubbled inside me like a volcano about to erupt. A project I'd been developing the night before stood out among my notes and sketches. It was an emerging technology that could revolutionize the market. But who would care? My family saw me as a lost dreamer, someone who, instead of seeking stability and security, had decided to take absurd risks, as if following my passion were a personal offense. The irony was that I had become the only person willing to fight for my convictions. "The world isn't made of dreams, Clara." My mother's words always echoed in my mind, as if an answer were needed not only at that moment, but with every decision I made. The impact of uncertainty was like a constant weight, a reminder that I was pursuing something that apparently no one else in my family believed in. The vision they couldn't see, the revolution I wanted to bring, seemed hundreds of miles away, and the loneliness of the journey weighed heavily on me. As I prepared for the big day of the presentation, a whirlwind of emotions flooded my mind. The pride I expected to feel mingled with fear. What if everything went wrong? What if my mother's words came true? The answer was already within me. I had to face everything. What they were about to realize was that in their criticism, I found the fuel that propelled me forward. The truth is, the weight of family expectations only made my desire to innovate stronger. So, with my mind buzzing with ideas, I got out of bed, determined. I knew that the reality I had built over the past few months would finally be presented to the world. I took a deep breath, feeling the energy of the revolution that was about to unfold before me. And even if my family didn't see what I saw, I was more ready than ever to show that the vision my family didn't want to see wasn't just a silent scream, but the first step toward a new era. The memories started to flow, like a river still carrying the echoes of the stones at its bottom. At every family dinner, conversations followed a familiar pattern, where silence was often as deafening as the unspoken words. The table, laden with dishes carefully prepared by my mother, often hid an atmosphere of tension. The aroma of roast chicken couldn't mask the weight of expectations that hung over us. I looked at those familiar faces, and although I recognized the love that existed, there was also a strong pressure that suffocated me. I suppose each family achievement represented another brick in the wall that limited my ambitions. "Clara, You need a stable career, not adventures, my mother would say, her eyes shining with a mixture of worry and disappointment. It was a reminder that I was throwing away a bright future for the dream of being different. It wasn't just criticism. Her words were covenants rooted in her life experience. Mark, my brother, frequently sided with her, reinforcing the chorus of voices that echoed through the house. "How many times will you hurt yourself before you learn?" he'd ask, the words issuing from his mouth with the coldness of a blade. He, a perfect reflection of family beliefs, yearned to protect the legacy they all expected me to inherit. What they couldn't see was the growing fire burning within me, a revolution waiting to happen, an uncontrollable desire not to become just a shadow of external expectations. The criticisms hammered at my mind, but only made me stronger, more determined to prove I could be more than what my family desired. During these dinners, what was truly lacking was validation of my potential. Time and again, I wrestled with the truth forming, that my true self didn't fit into the molds they had created. So, at the end of a dark night of family tensions, I retreated to my room, where the mirror reflected more than my tired face. I saw a restless spirit, an inner competition I was about to fight. Putting pen to paper, words began to flow into a poem. In the pursuit of the new, old freedom burns. Among the voices of the root, you find the courage of the tree that stands in storms. It was a metaphor for the process I felt unfolding within me, a declaration to the world that I was about to transform. On rereading it, a sense of hope began to emerge, but doubt remained. Would it be worth fighting against the tide? Then, these moments became a vicious cycle. With every victory in my career, a new burden arose from the pressure of family expecting something in return. The further I advanced, the more the insecurities of my childhood surfaced. What defined success? A job? Status? A target of incessant criticism, with my mother's voice always echoing in my thoughts. There was no escaping it. Her presence was constant, and her expectations palpable. In reality, with every step I took towards my dream, it was like leaving home for a place where I was always the outsider. Over time, my work, which began as a temporary escape, transformed into a true battlefield where I confronted both external and internal expectations. With each project, I tested limits, not only of my understanding, but of technology and innovation. The clatter of keyboards and clicks became the music of my freedom. Day by day, I transcended the barriers of creation in my new job, diving into innovations that not only shaped my ideas but somehow challenged the world around me. Then, into this turbulent scene, came David, a friend, photographer, and mentor I never imagined I'd connect with. He was oil amidst the fire and the battle between innovation and tradition. Once, while discussing creative perspectives, he observed me intently. "Sometimes, you need to look through a different lens to see the truth that's right in front of you," he said, his voice low but full of meaning. He didn't just capture moments in his photographs. He captured the essence of my fears and insecurities. With David by my side, the fog surrounding me began to dissipate. I developed a new vision of what could be. He became a source of encouragement, introducing me to a world where dreams weren't just for dreaming, but for pursuing. When discussing my projects, he always challenged me to expand my vision, not to limit myself to what society expected of me. Innovation isn't just creating something new, Clara. It's illustrating the possibility of turning ideas into realities, he'd prod, resonating with a new truth. Each conversation with David became a moment of revelation, a glimpse into my identity. Second opinions, new perspectives, a gaze that found what was hidden within me. The freedom to express my ideas and solidify my potential began to push back against the criticisms that had once dominated me. It was no longer just Clara, the daughter decimated by the fears of family legacy. It was Clara, the woman who was beginning to become the change she wanted to see in the world. Even as the voices of my family echoed in my mind, the strength of the relationship I was forging with my innovation and with David became my anchor. He not only welcomed me as a friend, but as someone who believed in the importance of what I did. He was the key that began to unlock doors I never knew existed. It was a step towards transformation, a tile on the path that once seemed insurmountable. With this shift in perspective, I began to move away from the weight my family placed on me. It was time to show them that the vision my family didn't want to see wasn't just a silent scream, but the letter I wrote seeking recognition. I was left with a single understanding, that I was ready to write my own story. The revolution was within me, and it was time to let it shine. After David opened my eyes to the possibility of innovation, every new idea that popped into my head felt more tangible, less like a ghost. Determination surged within me, like a wave gaining height with each approaching tide. I decided it was time to focus on my most audacious project, a technology that could transform not only the industry, but also my self-perception. I knew I couldn't waver. Determination needed fuel, so I dove headfirst into development. That morning, as the sun barely began to rise, I made sure to create a conducive environment for my quest. My apartment transformed into a makeshift laboratory where notes and sketches danced across my desk. Pens of different colors scattered across the space like a palette of unexplored hopes. As daylight streamed through the windows, I felt the energy of the new day reverberating in every corner. It was there, amidst the chaos of creation, that I felt most alive. I created a data table, categories and segments, everything meticulously organized. I cataloged every idea, every innovation I glimpsed. It felt like a mission, to make what was in my head into something tangible. The glow of the monitors reflected my determined face as my brain pulsed with information about trends and emerging technologies. I sought inspiration in real-world innovations, analyzing how scholarship could be translated into something visual and functional. I needed to understand time, space, and how technology could intertwine to bring about change. That's when David texted me. "Clara, you need to step away. Getting too caught up in the details might obscure your overall vision." I laughed for a moment, but then realized he was right. Focusing solely on theory might make me seem like an expert, but I needed experience, the human touch often missing from the lab. My mind racing, I decided to allow myself a break, a guilt-free pause, promising to return stronger. That afternoon, we decided to visit a tech expo. It was a chance to see other innovations in action, to feel the pulse of the new firsthand. As we walked through the massive doors, the atmosphere vibrated with curiosity. The space was illuminated by elegant fixtures, and the air was filled with the scent of new ideas. I looked around, realizing that visionaries and creators were all around me. A sense of belonging began to well up inside me. David and I got lost amidst the exhibits. I began to understand the importance of branding and innovation. How technology presents itself to the world is as crucial as its functionality. "Look how this device brings the practicality of a miniature projector," David commented, pointing to a device that allowed for immediate interaction with the projected images. With each discovery, my mind lit up, as if a light was being switched on with every new concept I absorbed. We sat down in a relaxation area, surrounded by others who shared the same passion. "You know, Clara, true innovation isn't just about having a brilliant idea. It's also about understanding what the market needs and connecting with people," David said, a twinkle in his eyes. His words echoed in my mind. It wasn't enough to create something that was merely cool. I needed to build something impactful. What I truly wanted, ultimately, was to provide experiences, and that required empathy, an understanding of people's pains and needs. With every thought that arose, a cloud of creativity enveloped me. When we returned, determination was firmly rooted in my mind. This was the new vision I wanted to convey, a genuine connection between technology and humanity. From that moment on, the project would go beyond a simple idea. It would become a representation of myself and my idea of revolution. The research intensified. I returned to my lab, revisiting my notes, now with a new perspective. I prepared a list of questions I needed to answer. What unmet needs still exist? How could I unite aesthetics and functionality to revolutionize a saturated market? Hours passed, and I worked tirelessly, exploring concepts that had previously seemed distant. It was fascinating to see how each technological element could unfold to serve not only users, but also create a broader impact, a ripple effect in people's lives. The desire to contribute to something larger was becoming the driving force behind every success. I engaged in interviews, gathered feedback and rumors about the use of analogous technologies, and my mind felt like a kaleidoscope of possibilities. Each data segment offered a different perspective, and the insecurities that had previously attacked me began to sound like arrows launched in a battle. But I already had armor. Perseverance was intertwined with my identity. David continued to be not only a friend but also a vital advisor. He accompanied me on some of the interviews, helping me capture not only the answers that made sense, but also the emotions that came with each response. "That's it, Clara. You're capturing what's most important," he would say. As the discoveries progressed, each piece of feedback became a foundation for the new version of my creation. And there, in that space shaped by passion and innovation, I began to feel that my vision was not only compatible with family expectations, but surpassed them. The revolution was not only about creating something new, but about the personal transformation I was undergoing on this journey. With each passing day, some of the criticism faded, and the freedom to create and dream felt like an act of affirmation and resistance. The research was solidifying, and at the same time, the shadows of the past seemed to fade. In the midst of this process, I not only discovered a new reality for my innovation, but also for myself. The voice that had been hiding in the background was now becoming stronger and stronger. And so, the journey of discovery was beginning to conclude its first cycle, an essential preparation for what was about to unfold in the next steps. I was ready. With a horizon of possibilities now opening before me, I was determined to delve even deeper into the research for my project. My vision wasn't limited to creating an invention. It was about forging a legacy that could resonate in people's lives. The reality of what I was about to build became increasingly clear, an echo of need and desire pulsing within me. I decided that the first step to deepen my investigation would be to reassess the market needs. With this in mind, I organized a series of interviews not only with creative colleagues but also with potential users. I wanted to understand exactly what they lacked, what gaps my innovations could fill. Another thing that intrigued me was how technology could trigger emotional connections, reshaping people's daily lives. It was in this spirit that I decided my next step would be to go to the city's Institute for Research and Innovation, renowned for its initiatives on emerging technologies. Upon arrival, the tangible atmosphere of creativity enveloped me. The walls were decorated with prototypes and cutting-edge inventions, frames that conveyed the depth of human potential working in harmony with technology. Each exhibit was a window to a new possibility. My eyes sparkled as I observed how ideas were being transformed into practical experiences, each creation an extension of its creator's ambitions. The first presentation on the future of technology in education dazzled me. A group of students was showcasing how a new platform could, through gamification, make learning more accessible and engaging. Education isn't just about transmitting knowledge, but about creating experiences that resonate, one of the students said, and her words reverberated in my mind. I noticed that this same perspective could be applied to my own creation. After the presentations, I sought to speak with some of the presenters. The exchange of ideas made me feel that I was, indeed, on the right path. They told me about the challenges they faced during the development of their innovations, sharing their pains, privileges, and the expectations that consumed them. Breaking down barriers and building bridges, this collective experience was exactly what I needed to guide my project. With the new insights firmly rooted, I returned to my lab, now not just a space of creation, but also an environment for accelerating ideas. I began to integrate everything I had learned, taking into account the feedback I had already collected. I started creating sketches and wireframes of my product's interface, exploring every angle, every function, every visual detail that could connect. I wanted users to feel part of a whole, as if they were co-creators of their experiences. As I delved into the new versions of my prototype, I perceived a new hallmark in my journey: personalization. It would be something that adapted to the needs and preferences of each user. To achieve this goal, I scheduled meetings with Rachel, who always had valuable insights on usability. "It's the personalization that will allow your innovation to strike a chord with users," she said. Together, we explored concepts of interaction and emotional connection, designing a feedback loop that not only considered usage, but also how users would feel when interacting with the prototype. I was absorbed in this cycle of discovery, enthralled by the idea that true innovation would arise not only from an individual mind, but from intense collaboration. Rachel and I spent hours discussing and testing new features, and the energy between us was infectious. With David also present, the discussions became increasingly dynamic, and the atmosphere of our creative space was a living laboratory of emotions and inventions. We needed his clear vision to ensure that the design was not only aesthetically pleasing, but also ergonomic. The pressure began to mount as I prepared for what I considered a crucial point: the presentation of the prototype to a small group of investors next week. I felt the adrenaline pulsing in every part of my body. It was a watershed moment. I needed to ensure that what I was building not only resonated with the audience, but also made them believe in our mission. As the date approached, I found myself immersed in revisions. Nights were spent sleepless, filled with last-minute tweaks and adjustments, with the walls of my lab filled with scribbles and notes that manifested my insatiable desire for success. But at the same time, the shadow of my family loomed over me. Their words of disapproval still echoed in my mind, though a little further away now. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't just running after personal recognition, but also seeking the validation of those who most criticized and shaped me. Genesis and other stories were on my mind. The revolution begins within, I told myself. It was a mantra, a silent scream to remind myself that honesty about my desires and capabilities were fundamental to my journey. On the eve of the presentation, finally, after an entire night of rehearsals, I decided I deserved a moment of pause. I grabbed my notebook and went for a walk along the city's waterfront. The scent of the sea and the sound of the waves breaking against the rocks brought a sense of calm I hadn't felt in a long time. It was there that I realized that external pressures couldn't negate the inner desire that propelled me. As she walked, the sunlight began to set, casting a golden aura over the water, a perfect metaphor for the transition about to occur in her life. Night might be falling, but it was also a sign of rebirth. She was ready to present herself not just as an engineer, but as an innovator seeking change that would manifest not only in her work, but in her relationships, especially those that had always told her she wasn't good enough. Returning home, a surge of energy coursed through her body. The revolution she was architecting was not only external, but also internal. Every challenge and every criticism had shaped her, but now they were building blocks, not chains that bound her. Tomorrow, at the presentation, she didn't just need to show her efforts. She needed to show who she truly was. The echo of the voices that had once discouraged her now mingled with her own cry of self-validation. Tomorrow would be the day the vision my family didn't want to see would become a tangible reality. The revolution she desired was no longer a distant idea. It was a shout, a giant leap toward the future she was creating with every idea, every interaction, and most importantly, every choice she made to believe in herself. And that was the true essence of the innovation she was about to present to the world. The big day had finally arrived. The clock struck the early hours of the morning, and a silvery light began to stream through the windows of her home, sending a beam of hope and determination across her living space. Looking in the mirror, the reflection surprised her. It wasn't just the old Clara, full of insecurities, but someone about to reclaim her story. There was a resolute gleam in her eyes, a flame of determination that had been lit over the past few months of hard work. She put on a professional blouse that made her feel confident and strong, something that reflected the fearless woman she was becoming. Reviewing the final details of her presentation, she realized that each slide was more than just information. They represented the journey she had taken. Each chart and each illustration told a part of her story, and she was ready to share it. She wouldn't just present an invention. She would show the struggle, the passion, and the hope that were intertwined in every idea developed. Driving to the auditorium, the mix of adrenaline and nervousness enveloped her like a tight hug. She was aware of the importance of this moment, not only for herself, but for everyone who had believed in her along the way, especially David and Rachel, who had become her partners on this journey. The path was filled with other innovators, people who, like her, sought to make their mark, and this heightened her anticipation. Everyone there carried their own dreams and struggles, and that inspired her greatly. Upon arriving at the presentation venue, she was immediately struck by a tangible energy. The auditorium was packed, and the audience consisted of potential investors, colleagues, and undoubtedly, eager critics. A wave of anticipation pulsed in the air. With a final touch to her hair and the deep breath that always calmed her, she prepared herself as positive thoughts raced through her mind. I am capable. I have a vision. They need to hear what I have to say. The lights dimmed, and a shadow fell on the stage before she walked on. She felt the eyes on her, each carrying a unique expectation. As she began to speak, her voice steadied, and the words flowed clearly. Hello, everyone. My name is Clara Evans, and today I'm here to present an innovation that will not only transform how people interact with technology, but also how they connect with each other. The sound of her voice echoed through the auditorium, mingling with the eager anticipation that filled the space. She presented her project, revealing each detail with the same passion that had guided her to this moment. She showed charts representing the research she had conducted, user comments that had been submitted during the testing stages. Reactions ranged from excitement to curiosity. She wasn't just talking about technology. She was telling a story about transformation, about how our technology could adapt and grow, just like she had. At the end of the slide showing the prototype's functionalities, she paused briefly and smiled at the audience. What you really want is not just a product, but an experience. And that's the direction I'm taking. A technology that adapts, that educates, and that above all, unites. She felt she had touched a nerve there, a universal desire that resonated not only with her, but with everyone watching. The culminating moment arrived when she transitioned to a demonstration video. This would be the proof of the emotional impact a genuine experience could have. Please watch, she requested enthusiastically. The images showed people interacting with the technology, laughing, getting emotional, and sharing experiences. The audience was immersed in the scene, and she could sense the connection forming. It was a magical moment. When she turned to the audience, their faces showed expressions of genuine interest. She continued to present the metrics and research they had done, highlighting how each personalized feedback had been incorporated to create an interface that truly connected. What she was creating was a vision, an idea that could be shaped by everyone who dreamed of being heard. The climax of the presentation arrived during the Q&A. Several investors were buzzing, raising their hands to question me. One, a respected tech executive, stood and asked, "How do you plan to scale this idea to adapt to the dynamic and often shifting needs of the market?" He was someone who knew what the industry needed and genuinely cared about people. I took a deep breath, knowing this was a crucial question. We're building a system that learns and evolves with use. To truly understand what needs changing, we want to incorporate constant feedback from user interactions, not just superficially, but by really listening to what they have to say and implementing those suggestions and updates. A murmur of approval rippled through the room, and I could feel the energy shifting. With each answer, my confidence grew. Several people stood to share their perspectives, as if we were all brainstorming at a large table. I was thrilled to witness the connection being forged. Conversations flowed about potential collaborations, partnerships, and ultimately, investments. I was a vital part of this dialogue, and everything I'd worked for seemed worthwhile. As the presentation drew to a close, a new wave of excitement and connection swept through the auditorium. I thought of all the sleepless nights, the stress, and the criticism I'd faced. For every step I'd taken, I'd encountered people who believed in me and my vision, and that was an indescribable feeling. When I finished, applause filled the space. I couldn't believe what was happening. The words in my mind, those critical voices that once echoed, now seemed insignificant. I was finally presenting myself as Clara Evans, the woman who not only dreams, but delivers. After the presentation, a lively conversation unfolded. With all the new contacts I made, I realized the pitch had sparked not only interest, but also a robust support network that could help revive our collective aspirations as entrepreneurs. Each investor who approached expressed insecurities and thoughts similar to my own. Talks of collaboration were exchanged, and simultaneously, a vessel of individual confidence solidified with each word that surfaced. After a while, a familiar figure approached. It was David, his face reflecting building pride and excitement. "Clara, that was incredible. How far you've come. Not just as an engineer, but as the granddaughter of an innovator. You did it." He clasped my arm, and a wave of emotion surged from something much deeper than words could express. The support I'd found in him throughout the journey translated now into a collective acknowledgement that something special was happening. As deals were made and conversations concluded, the path was forming. There was fire and hope, an electric fuel vibrating in the air. I needed to continue this journey, even when challenges tested me again. In that moment, I realized the true revolution I sought wasn't just mine. It was an echo of everyone who'd fought for their visions, everyone who'd never stopped believing that the impact could be real and transformative. When I finally left the auditorium, the city was illuminated, pulsing with new possibilities. The people on the sidewalks and the passing cars conveyed a sense of movement, of life. In that instant, something lit up inside me. I discovered who I truly was and what it meant to be an innovator. More than at the beginning, I had to greet my family, talk about my victories, and more than that, pave a way for them to understand the revolution I'd started, not just in my career but in my life. In the future that now lay before me, there was a new opportunity to map it out, a new moment to show my family that, after all, the vision they didn't want to see could and would become a testament to the strength and determination I possessed. My desire to be heard was finally coming to fruition, and that revolution, started by me, was only just beginning. In the days following the presentation, a new energy pulsed through me. The recognition I was gaining, not just for the innovation, but for the strength of my journey, became a powerful fuel propelling me forward. The feeling that my vision was finally being accepted transformed into an ardent desire to realize this idea in a way that resonated with every element I aspired to. Partnership proposals started pouring in, flooding my inbox and schedule. There was an unexpected intensity to the days, each meeting bringing me a step closer to the true realization of my project. However, this new routine, marked by endless meetings and exciting conversations, came with a certain nervousness. I was rising to a new position, but the idea that I needed to be more than just an engineer to manage all these new challenges also pressured me. With David by my side, the rapid-fire discussions about finances and implementations became increasingly enriching. He became not just a partner, but also a mentor. There was something about his critical analysis and his ability to see the minutiae that made me feel perfectly supported. "We're creating a revolutionary project, Clara. This isn't just yours, it's ours," he always reaffirmed, as if reminding me of the very depth of the collaboration we were building. One morning, while reviewing our final proposal for investors, David suggested I add a section on real user feedback. Show them we're not just guessing what people want, but that we're already collecting data directly from our user base. "It'll show we're ready to listen and adapt," he said. That afternoon, we felt empowered creating a presentation that included genuine feedback, organically integrated into our development. I felt like a true leader as I crafted and refined each part of the presentation. The weight on my shoulders was replaced by a warm energy that propelled me each day. In that moment, everything felt right. I wasn't just presenting technology. I was leading a movement that could impact how people interacted with machines. The turning point came with an invitation to a larger conference, an event attracting the tech industry elite and innovators from around the globe. The idea of speaking to this smaller, yet power-packed audience of potential business partners left me excited and nervous at the same time. The need to share my story became a goal that transcended any fear I might have felt. In the following days, I immersed myself in preparations. I sketched out what would be an engaging and empathetic presentation, drawing on what I'd learned from the last conference. The collective spirit from my previous interactions blossomed, and the connection I hoped to make with the audience grew in power. At this kind of conference, I could not only showcase my invention, but also inspire others to believe their stories were valuable too. When the day of the conference finally arrived, the bright lights temporarily blinded me. But as I began to speak, each light transformed into a beacon of opportunity before me. Hello, everyone. Today, I'm not just here to present a technological solution, but a vision. A vision grounded in real feedback, a learning that transcends the boundaries of individual creation, I said, feeling the audience's energy shape itself from my sincerity. Like a refreshing breeze, it spread through the room as I began showcasing the prototype and its practical applications. All the warmth and excitement I'd felt in my heart now echoed in the audience's expressions. A genuine connection was forming. One investor, an industry icon, raised her hand. Can you show us how this project adapts over time to respect the ever-changing needs of users? It was an excellent question, and with a smile, I took a deep breath and answered. Absolutely. Our approach focuses on continuous personalization, incorporating feedback we receive regularly. This evolution is part of what we believe is crucial to creating a genuine connection with our users. The warmth of the subsequent applause gave me an adrenaline rush that reminded me of the power behind my vision. Days turned into weeks, and the conference became a transformative milestone. Contact with investors generated new exchanges and invitations to potential meetings. I began to realize there was a broad spectrum of people willing to help bring my idea to fruition. I started rescheduling appointments, each one becoming a new opportunity to further expand the project's reach. The return on interactions and connections began to manifest tangible results. Interest in my project grew exponentially, with several investment offers emerging. However, with this new phase of negotiations also came challenges. Expectations were rising, and the world around me had become an organized sea of expectations and implementation. One bright afternoon, during a discussion about a potential deal with a major tech conglomerate, I received a phone call. It was my mother and brother. My heart pounded. Would this be the time to finally share the victories I'd achieved? How would they react to the changes I'd made in my life? A lump formed in my throat as I answered. Hi, Mom. So many feelings were involved, and I witnessed how communication became a reflection of the immense highs and lows I carried within me. The weight of family expectations hammered in my mind like a drum. We're so proud of you, my mother finally said emotionally. We saw the presentation. We were impressed. A shiver ran down my spine, a wave of relief reverberating through my being. There was the acceptance, but what stung more was that my achievements were obscured by a desire to understand the complexities of my relationship with them. We talked about my project, and I witnessed how genuine their questions were. How are you feeling about all these new challenges? My brother asked. It's a lot, isn't it? The empathy emanating from them was a bridge I hadn't valued before. The conversations flowed, and slowly, like a loosening current, I unfurled in sharing my perspective. I talked about the difficulties, the fear, and the challenges I faced when I decided to risk it all. You're finally claiming what's yours, and you're not alone in this, my mother said. The weight of her words, of an acceptance that had seemed distant before, now made me feel that this revolution I sought wasn't just mine, but of everyone who was rooting for me. This acceptance gave me a newfound resolve. From that moment on, a new identity emerged. Not just the engineer or the innovator, but Clara, someone who empowered her emotions from the age of 5. I was determined to communicate this shift, to seek the connection that had been lost for so long, and to encourage those around me to do the same. The culmination of that journey was only just beginning, and as doors opened around me, I realized that challenges would become part of the narrative, rather than barriers. A new space existed to cultivate a collective of voices, doubts, and hopes. And with that, the revolution wouldn't be merely external, but an ongoing internal change, poised to transform not only the market, but also the reality of the lives of everyone who aspires to change. I had found my place in the world and was ready to let it shine. The days following my conversation with my family were warm and full of transformation. With each message of support and each email from interested investors, I felt the universe conspiring in my favor, guiding me toward a future that had seemed distant before. The acceptance I had received from my mother and brother became an emotional anchor, helping me navigate this new reality forming around me. Their presence in my life, now stronger, brought me a balance I didn't know I needed. Amidst all the new responsibilities this role as an innovator brought, I decided it was time to formalize what I was truly building. It would be a new company, a foundation focused not only on technological innovation, but also on inclusion, collaboration, and genuinely listening to the emotions and experiences of users. I meticulously planned everything. The new vision wouldn't be solely about profit, but about creating a community around the product. A support network where users could contribute suggestions and ideas, as if they were co-authors of this innovative narrative. This idea was as new to me as it was to the market, and the possibilities were inviting. I started working on a business model that prioritized transparency and collaboration. I organized meetings with a selection of investors who had shown interest. I presented my new concept, now a company concept that wasn't limited to a simple technology, but a promise of community. From the start, I conveyed the importance of an ecosystem where everyone could share their stories and be heard. The reaction was positive. Investors were enthusiastic about the proposal to create social impact through technology. In each meeting, their interested gazes widened, and questions flowed, reflecting their desire to understand how the idea could translate into action. This renewed energy made me feel that what I had dreamed of could finally align with what the market wanted. A few days later, with the emotional support of my family, and now a group of willing investors, I would accomplish what I had sought for so long. It was the official launch of my company. The venue was a vibrant co-working space that had the power to inspire and connect. When I entered, the hall was packed with friends, colleagues, and new business partners, a sea of faces reflecting the joy of the new journey we were about to embark on. The energy was infectious. I was greeted with applause and smiles. As I took the microphone, I looked at the audience full of both familiar and unfamiliar faces, and felt a wave of gratitude. Welcome, everyone. Today is a special day, not just for a project, but for a new way of doing business, where every voice counts, where every interaction is a step towards new discoveries, I managed to say, my emotion almost interrupting me. I shared my journey, from the days when doubts were constant to the achievement I built alongside incredible people. I couldn't have gotten here without those who believed in me. This company isn't just the result of my work, but a community of ideas and creativity that you are all a part of, I said, gesturing to the audience. What had once seemed like a solitary struggle became a joint effort, a space of trust built on the desire for transformation and innovation. With each word, I realized I wasn't just celebrating a new phase of my career, but also creating the foundation for something bigger, a collective empowerment. As I shared the blueprint of my product, a mix of emotion and expectation filled the room. I glimpsed new horizons for everyone present. With the launch, opportunities began to solidify. The return and feedback we received were promising. People responded well to our innovative approach and the idea of being co-creators in the experience. This translated into an increase in the user base, and gradually, institutions were seeking partnerships, willing to apply the technology in times of need. In the weeks that followed, my team and I met frequently for discussions. In addition to innovations, we focused on how we could improve the user experience, listening to what came from the depths of their emotions. The interaction wasn't just about functionalities, but about what made people feel connected. Group conversations revolved around dreams, hopes, and a genuine desire to cultivate a space where everyone could be heard. With each piece of feedback, we renewed our ability to adapt. My priority was, and always would be, to remain attentive to these voices, and, above all, to ensure that everyone had space to express themselves. The idea that any one of us could have a valuable impact added value to what we were creating. In this new world I built around me, relationships deepened. The idea that dreams can come true continued to resonate, not just in my life, but in the lives of everyone who joined this journey. The metamorphosis that arose from the challenges became an undeniable part of who I was. And now, every new contract and every conversation became opportunities beyond mere profit. We were creating something that informed, empowered, and, most importantly, united. In those moments of happiness and gratitude, I always made space to acknowledge those who came before me. My battles and victories were now aligned with something bigger, an interconnected revolution. I realized that as I revealed this new chapter in my life, I was also helping shape the future of technological and social empowerment. And so the story of the new Clara Evans unfolded. A woman who not only sought her place in a competitive environment, but opened doors for others to do the same. It wasn't just the end of a journey, but the beginning of a new era, a new reality where technology and humanity coexisted in synergy. I had found my purpose, and was determined to continue expanding this vision, one connection at a time, one dream at a time. The revolution, once just an idea in my dreams, was now materializing into reality, and it all started with the courage to believe in myself, in my story, and especially in the power of the voices around me.